Today you'll see a knit top that is easier to sew than what it looks like. Got a V neckline with a little twist right here. I've got one for winter and one for summer. Beautiful colors. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and I have some knit sewing to share today. It's a really different design. I really enjoyed sewing it, and it's called Zakopane top from Itch to Stitch. It's designed for knit fabrics, and when you see the liner, it seems like it's going to be super complicated because of the neckline detail here, but it's really easy to sew. What you first see is a V neckline of sorts, but it's got a twist there and it's got a center front seam. Regarding the depth of the V neckline and the twist, it's not something that you can just easily modify and raise because it's got to do with the way it was drafted and that there's a hidden bust dart in there. I think it depends on your height and proportions, the way that this is going to look on the body, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. Otherwise, the rest is a simple top. It'll reach the mid hip and you have the option of short or long sleeves. This neckline is finished with a binding inside, and it's not a traditional V type of binding. It's actually really easy to sew. It's designed to be fitted on the body. For fabrics, I mentioned it was for knit fabrics. You can't really sew this in a woven, not even if you tried, so don't try it. And you need at least 50% stretch horizontally and vertically. The vertical stretch is important here, I believe, because of the way the neckline and this twist goes. I don't think a knit with just horizontal stretch is going to work really well. I think drape is desired and keeping it light to medium weight. I would not want to do this with something super heavyweight, or else this little twist would end up super bulky. So rayon, modal bamboo with spandex, ITY, double brush poly, athletic knits, sweater knits, anything that has a nice hand and a nice drape is going to work amazing. You also need a little bit of interfacing to stabilize the shoulders and the back neckline, or fusible tape, whichever one you have. I've made two versions, one for winter. It is a really beautiful color in a sweater knit. I've made a long sleeve version there, and then I have a summer one in an athletic knit, and there I went a little rogue and made a sleeveless one. It's not one of the options, but you know I'm going to make a sleeveless one, right? It's just so hot here. Because the Zakopane top is a brand new pattern, it's 20% off at Itch to Stitch. That goes through Sunday the 26th of March. I'll leave you all the information below, as well as my affiliate link if you'd like to use it. If you click on that link and it takes you to the site and you do your purchases, I do get a small commission back, and that supports the work that I do here on YouTube. The sizing goes from 00 to 40 US up to a 62-inch hip, and you have a standard bust option. You would use that one if the difference between your high bust and your full bust is 0 to 3 inches. If it's 3 inches or more, you would use the full bust option. For Itch to Stitch patterns and the way that KNIT designs this full bust option, that really works for me, so that is my option. I do have a 3-inch difference, so I'm right there in the cusp of choosing the regular or the full bust, but the full bust is a really good option for me. I mentioned before that this was a fitted design, so at the bust you're going to have 0 ease, at the waist you're going to have a little under 2 inches of ease, and then at the hips you go back to basically 0 ease. So it's meant to be nice and fitted. It's meant to hit the mid-hip. There are finished measurements, always very detailed, and you also get finished length measurements. That's the information I use to know what I want to modify. I'm taller, so I'm usually needing to add a little bit of length to anything I sew most of the time. So in this case, the only fitting adjustments I made was add 1.5 inches to the length front and back, but at the lower cut line. So there is one that you'll find a little above the waist notch, and you would use that if you're petite, for example, and you have a shorter area here. Maybe you're super tall and you have a super long area there, then you would modify the line at the top as well. So I like that there's 2 lines because you can always choose the best place that's going to fit your body, and you might need to use both of them. For the sleeve, I just added 1 inch because I actually like my sleeves to sort of be at my thumb. Personal preference, you know, you can use them right there. My chosen sizes were a 14 full bust blended out to a 16, and that's perfect for me. I really love the fit there. Now, I mentioned when I was describing this pattern that the neckline is sort of mid to low. It's not plunging, but it's not a super high neckline, you know. There is the risk of you showing cleavage. It just depends on how tall you are, what your proportions are, you know, what your bust height is, the type of bra you use, etc. So I think you need to know that from the get-go. You know, you can't modify the pattern piece in the way that it's drafted to make it higher. So the patterns are drafted for a woman that's like 5'6", I believe. So for example, if you're 5 foot tall and you just make it as is, the neckline might end up being just too low for you. same as the armhole, and all the height issues that involve being petite or taller, you know, when you're comparing your body to a pattern. So in that case, I would suggest you doing the petite adjustment, which is what you do with knits or wovens, and it's take length above here around the armhole area and just take that away from the front and the back. Then you would also need to modify your sleeve cap so that everything fits. So I think even half an inch would make a big difference if you're petite, for the neckline to hit at a better place for you. In my case, I'm 5'8". My length proportions here are pretty standard or even a tad longer. So I wasn't too concerned that the neckline was going to be super low for me. I'm just someone that does not show my bust. I will not, if there's like any of my bust showing, I just won't wear that garment. So I was just really cautious and did some measurements and just had a lot of hope that everything was going to be good. And it is. I have filmed some sewing for you, mainly focused on the neckline. The way that you put it together is not the same way that you put together any other top. You do one shoulder first and then you end up with the other shoulder. It's a little bit different, but it's super easy. You're going to see how easy it is. You'll see footage from both of my versions. So let's see. This is the back piece of the Zakopane top, and I have already stabilized the shoulders and the back neckline. I've just used a little strip of fusible interfacing, really lightweight. You can see it there, it doesn't stretch at all, and that's just going to prevent this area from stretching out. Because it's narrow, it's really easy to mold it to the curve there of the neckline, and now this area is not going to stretch at all. Here are the pattern pieces for the Zakopane top. There's only 4 pieces. The back is on the fold. You can see the black interfacing there. The front is on the fold, but only partially, and you can see it's sort of slanted, so there will be an open area in the middle. I would suggest not using stripes because it can really distort how those will turn out. Then there's a long sleeve, and the binding for the neckline can also have a short sleeve as well. The first step is sewing the right shoulder seam as you wear it. So putting the back right sides up, and now we put the front right sides together on top. We're just going to align the right wearer's shoulder seam, and that is the one that we need to sew. We're not going to sew both of them. The left one will be left open, and that will be sewn after the binding is on. It's quite an interesting construction. So I'm at the serger. I've got the interface layer on the top, the back shoulder, and I've got the front that's not interfaced at the bottom. It's always easier to sew with a more stable area on the top, and I'm just cleaning up these edges, trying not to trim anything away. Then I'm going to go to the sewing machine and sew this with a 3/8 seam allowance. That is the seam allowance for the general seams of this pattern, and I'm just using a narrow zigzag for this. Then we're going to press the shoulder seam towards the back. This is the binding piece that you're seeing here. You're basically meant to sew the binding, flip it to the inside, top stitch, and then trim away excess. Because I've already made one before, I know how much I need to trim out, and I'd rather just trim the pattern piece now. So I'm cutting away about half an inch. I think you can cut away up to 5/8 of an inch and you'll still be okay. Remember, I had trimmed away half an inch from the paper because I already made one before. I knew exactly how much I had to trim off anyway. So to not leave that end raw, I did serge that end. That's the side that's going to be turned inside. After sewing that right shoulder seam that's right there, what I've started doing now is pinning the binding over here. So this is the back neckline, that's the area that's been stabilized, and this is the left shoulder that hasn't been sewn yet. So just align the binding right there to the edge and start pinning from this end. I've pinned up to there. Here we have the front neckline, it's like a V shape, and then this is the other side. So I've pinned the end of the binding here. Everything should match 1 to 1. So I'll just keep pinning from this way until I reach the other side. And then we're going to sew this on a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now this does look like a V because the way it's being cut, but it's not going to be a V neckline. The binding, you just have to sew it on and sort of extend this area. It will all be inside, and when the twist is done, it's not going to be a V neck binding at all. So it's pretty straightforward. Okay, it's all pinned. This is where the V area was, but because the seam allowance is so small, we're not going to have an issue there. I don't think you need to snip into that area. So we're just going to sew this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to use my 1/4 inch presser foot and a narrow zigzag. Now I'm going to understitch the binding, which is just pushing the seam allowance underneath the binding right there and sewing on the edge. But I'm not going to start right here. I'm going to leave a little bit open, maybe about 5/8 of an inch. One thing I'd done with the back neckline, because it's curved, was snipping. So you can see the snips there, but I forgot to mention it. I did that before understitching. So now we're just going to turn the binding to the inside. I'm going to give it a quick hand base so it's really neat. And then we're going to top stitch. We're going to leave 2 inches free right here on this shoulder. This free shoulder here. We have the other shoulder. Also, we're going to leave 2 inches without the top stitching. You know how the front was cut on the fold, but only a little bit, and then you get this open area? This is going to be the center front seam after we do the twist. But we needed to clean this up with the serger first. And because it's so sharp here, I didn't just want to serge and try to go around like that. So what I did basically was start in this point and just drop my needle with the serger as close as I could there and serge all the way down, and then I did from this side down. So I have 2 sets of excess serger thread right here, but everything has been cleaned up there. I didn't want to leave any area raw, and that's how I thought I was going to have better access. I'm just going to pull some threads here so that they're all free and we don't have these loops anymore, and I'll just do a little knot and that'll finish that. Okay, so now we have the top here on the table. The fabric is right sides up. The neckline has been finished sort of partially, and just one shoulder seam is sewn, the other one is still free. This is the area that was finished with the serger. It's going to have a seam after we do the twist. You can do the twist whichever way you want. You can flip the fabric that way or that way, it doesn't really matter. So basically I'm just going to do it up. I'm going to take this, flip up, and then again basically. So I'm going to end up with the fabric right sides up here, but I've got that twist in there. So in that case I flipped it up like this, or you can flip it down like this. Just as long as you end up with the fabric right sides up again and the twist, it doesn't really matter which direction you do it. Okay, so here is the center front seam. This is going to be pressed open afterwards, so I started pinning from the bottom and I got all the way up to the top as much as I can. We're going to have a bulky area here because of the twist, and I've put a pin there as far as I want to sew, and I know I'm not going to have good access with the sewing machine all the way up there, so I'm just sewing this area about 3/8 of an inch by hand right here. I'm almost done. It'll be the same as it's been machine sewn. I mean, there's nothing different really. So I'm just going to reinforce here with 2 knots, and then from here down I'm just going to sew now with a 3/8 seam allowance and the shallow zigzag. This is how the twist looks so far. It looks a little messy, but once it's on the body it'll be fine. It's going to look like a V neckline, but not a sharp V one. And here is the seam that we're going to press open. Now what we need to do is sew this shoulder seam that's still loose, and we're going to sew it including the binding. So we just need to extend everything, and that's why we didn't want to top stitch all the way to the edge. We needed to leave it open so we can have access. I want to sew this way because the seam allowance of the binding is going to go that way as well towards the facings. So I'm going to put a pin here matching the seams, and then sew and serge this shoulder seam. Okay, so that shoulder seam is sewn including the binding, and now I've just flipped the binding inside, and remember we'd left an area that wasn't top stitched. So now I'm going to pick up and top stitch that missing area, and that's going to finish the neckline. So I basically left it at the neckline. After you have your neckline, you still have your side seams open. You can extend your piece and sew your sleeve in flat if you want, or you can sew your side seams and then sew your sleeve in on the round and then do your hems. You know, the last few steps were really, really basic and the ones that you do with anything. So I didn't film that. The way that I do things is sew the side seams first, prepare my sleeve separately, and then sew the sleeve in on the round. And that's basically the last step that I do, because at that stage my hem's already done on the sleeve, and so is the hem of the top. I think the twist looks a little messy when you see it on the hanger. It definitely looks better on the body. The pink is not the color that you're seeing on screen. It's a little darker. Here you can see the neckline, the binding. I made this one first, and with this one I actually sewed the whole binding piece in the original width. You're supposed to fold it in and then trim it. And that's why I decided I don't like trimming it after the fact. I'd rather just have it the size it's supposed to be. That's why you saw me cutting away for my second version. I don't like leaving things raw inside. The instructions don't mention finishing that area inside, but I couldn't do that. And because the sweater knit, I just want to be extra careful. I folded my binding in by a tiny little bit right there for this sweater knit version. So that's why you see the inside of the binding is folded in there. It's not going to be the same with the other one. But that's just extra things because of the sweater knit. Regular sleeves, twin hem, the seam under here, the center front seam. I mean, it's such a simple top once you get the twist done. It's so easy, and you can do the twist upwards or downwards. It doesn't really matter as long as you end up with both sides right sides up after you've done the twist. It's like a complete twist, and it's super easy. That's pressed open. This seam does need to be done with the sewing machine. I was able to get in as close as I could by sewing that tiny little bit by hand. I did the exact same here and then the rest by machine, and I really love how it turned out. Now you're going to see this one styled two ways, one with pants, one with a skirt. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with the styling. I love the color. Yeah, I just love it. This is my first Zakopane top, and I made it with a sweater knit. The solid color really lets you see the twist on the neckline, and I think it's really pretty. I've got simple styling with a skirt and some matching accessories. You'll see the details up closer, like that center front seam that you get after twisting one of these sides. For fitting adjustments, all I did was add 1.5 inches to the top at the lower lengthen and shorten line, and I also added an inch to the sleeves. This sweater knit is a little more loosely woven, has only 5% spandex, so it does look like it's got a bit more room than it actually has because the fabric has less recovery than other types of knits. I think the neckline depth is as low as I would wear it, but I'm happy I'm not showing anything. I think the twist is subtle and pretty. It's amazingly easy to sew up, and the top looks more complex than it is for sure. There you can see a closer look at the twist in the neckline. It's finished really neatly with a binding inside. Pretty striking in my opinion. This is a size 14 full bust option, and then blended out to a 16 at the hips. I'm really happy I have a winter version, but I've also made a summer version with the same pattern. This is the same pink Zakopane top but with my upland trousers, also from Itch to Stitch. They're in the same color scheme. I really like the purple with the pink. I like the length of this top with the pants. I think it's a really nice casual outfit but also a bit dressed up. I've got a scarf with a print to give it some life and a matching handbag. Can't wait to wear this out, and I feel amazing in these colors. And this sweater, yeah, it's just so cute. This is my second one. This is a purple athletic knit I've been hoarding. It's sleeveless. Now, what I did to this sleeveless armhole was just raise it by 3/8 of an inch and then taper back to the original. I kept the shoulder width the same. I didn't make it narrower. And then I just calculated my binding to be 90% of this circumference. And the way I sewed it was the way I'm really liking binding right now, which is really clean. You sew them right sides together, you flip it, you just wrap around the edge, and then you catch the back stitch in the ditch right here with a narrow zigzag. So it's a really clean finish. I really love how it looks. With this one, I didn't fold the binding, inside like I did with the sweater knit. I just serged the edge. And the rest is all exactly the same. This one was just sleeveless, but it's the same top, the same fit, the same size. But you're going to see that this one looks a little more fitted to the body than the sweater knit. And it's all got to do with the fabric. This has 10% spandex. The other one only had 5. The other one's more loosely woven. And it's just the type of fabric that would just grow a little bit, that would just feel looser on the body. similar to how rayon spandex or bamboo spandex, modal spandex feels. This one, you also see it with pants and a skirt. Here is my Zakopane top from East to Stitch that I made for summer. I went rogue and made it sleeveless. It's not an official option. You do have short sleeves though. And I've paired it with my purple upland trousers from East to Stitch and some green accessories just to give it some color. I really like the length of this top. This one looks a little bit more fitted than the sweater knit, and it's just because it's a different type of knit. This one's got a little bit more spandex. I think the depth of this V is perfect for me. It's deep enough, but I'm not actually showing anything. And the sleeveless armhole is good. It's basically the same armhole. I just raised it by about 3/8 of an inch and put some binding on it. This is a size 14 full bust option and then blended out to a 16 at the hips. Here is a closer look at the neckline and the binding. I really love this. I couldn't really help making myself a summer version that I can wear right now with my arms fresh. That's how I like it. And I love it with pants. You'll see it with a skirt next. This is a cool midi skirt that I have with stripe play. I think it's gonna match any color top and the purple goes perfect with it. I feel really good with this outfit. The skirt has a bit more volume, so the fitted Zakopane top gives it a bit of balance, and I love the look here, really relaxed, casual, but a bit dressed up also because that's my jam. I think this can go a long way in my wardrobe. Really love it. About the neckline and the cleavage situation. I'm really happy with how these fit on me. I'm wearing a bra that is not specially push up or anything like that. I have a few bras that are minimizing bras. Those are the types that I tend to want to wear most of the time. I'm not showing anything and I'm super comfortable. I know if I wore another type of bra in my wardrobe that is a little bit more push up as such, I would be showing a bit of my cleavage and I would not like that. If cleavage is not an issue for you, then it's all good, right? I love to make one of these in a black and make it for working out. What I do there is I just keep it fitted like it is up here, but then from the waist and hips, I just sort of flare it out a little bit so it's more of a looser fit there. That's the way that I like working out, a little longer as well to cover my bottom because I don't like wearing tight leggings with a short top. So I'd really like that because I think it's really cute and it would be just a really special workout top and not the basic tank that you wear for working out. So I really hope I can get that done. As always, I'd love to make a dress and just lengthen it, make it into a dress. It would be really cute as well. I am 100% sure I'm gonna be making this pattern again. Remember, the Zakopane top is 20% off through Sunday the 26th of March. Find all my links down below. And that's all from me. I hope you found this one really fun. I'll see you again soon.